Hello and welcome to our 5 minutes with Ekaterina war vlog from Dnipro, the central Ukraine. This January has started in Dnipro pretty grim because starting from the beginning of the month, Russians decided to bomb the energy infrastructure, and the temperatures are now dropping significantly. And because of this, we have a huge problem with the electricity. And probably you remember that before I was telling you that when you don't have the electricity, you also don't have the running water, because there are pumps and all the pumps are electrical. And also for the same reason, if you don't have the water, you don't have the heating, the central heating, for the same reason, because you need pumping. And the sewage system is also working using the specific filtration and specific pumps. And basically, when you don't have the electricity, you don't have anything. And right now, when I'm recording this video in my apartment, there is no electricity, so I'm doing it using the sunlight from my window. And thankfully, it's a sunny day today, because the previous few days we didn't have any sun. And the weather right now is about -8 degrees below zero, and Celsius, I mean. And that means that the temperatures are freezing. Yesterday we had a huge snow, and now it's maybe about, I don't know, maybe 10 centimeters snow on the ground. And a few days ago in my neighborhood, there was the huge bombing. Russians deployed drones, and what they decided to do is actually to bomb the electricity substations, like very tiny stations that actually are feeding not the whole city, not the big electric stations. 2 days ago, they decided to bomb the smaller ones and the smaller wires. And when this bombing happened, I've been at home, I was sleeping in my bed, I was trying to sleep, and half past 12 at night, the first explosion was very clearly heard here, and I was thinking, oh, that's close. And then I was thinking that, oh no, I'm going to sleep. It wasn't like very close to my home. And then there was another one, and another one, and another one, and by the fifth explosion, and they were maybe like 10 minutes apart, maybe 15 minutes apart, because the whole bombing lasted for 1 hour. And the fifth explosion was so big that actually the walls started to tremble, so all the walls started to go like this. And this is a brick house, so I was pretty much worried that the bricks can start just falling and everything will collapse. It was kind of a very stressful moment. And then there was another explosion, and then it was it. And after this bombing, they managed to damage this electricity wires. They managed to damage this the small electricity substation. It's a very tiny one. I don't even know how they learned that it exists there. Probably they found someone, they bribed someone who will tell them this map of the electricity substations. Maybe there were some people. I don't want to think that it was locals, but actually there were two cases, criminal cases in Zaporizhia, where young girls, not boys anymore. If you remember, before we had young teenage boys who were somehow trying to explode or to set on fire the military vehicles. This time they found two teenage girls who were setting the beacons on the specific buildings, and these beacons were used in order to navigate rockets, navigate drones there. And I don't want to think that there was someone who is setting the beacons on these buildings. But still, it's just hard to imagine how exactly they learned that this small building is there at all. And as a result, more than 400 flats are without windows now. It's literally 2 minutes walk from here. And if you go there, it's very grim, because you see that there's a window that is still intact, and then the next 2-3 windows that are totally broken, and then the whole floor is broken. So it's the wave was going in different directions, and it's very strange how exactly the windows broke there. Thankfully, nobody died that night, and The consequence is actually the electricity outages in some flats. They already have this outage for the third day in a row, so more than 40 hours. In my mom's house, she didn't have electricity for about 20 hours. In my flat, I didn't have the electricity for 10 hours, and today we also wouldn't have the electricity at least 12 hours, and nobody knows when the situation can be restored. And this is corresponding the recent last week's total blackout in the city when Russians actually bombed the specifically electric station, the big one in the city, but also they bombed the same electric station, a similar electric station in Zaporizhia. And both the Zaporizhia region and Dnipro region with multiple cities were out of the electricity, and you might have seen it on your local news because my friends from abroad, they started texting me asking what's happening in Dnipro. And it was scary because nobody knew when exactly and how it can be restored because nothing was working. Even hospitals temporarily were not working. They restored hospitals in the very first place, and all the hospitals were fed with the help of generators. And that's something that obviously is the highest priority. But then the subway was not working. Then there were nothing was working. Basically, these heating stations and different factories, strategic factories like the bread baking factory, for example, food places, they were not working as well. And this blackout lasted about 22 hours for the optimistic prognosis for the so the first people who started to have the electricity, they started having it after 22 hours, and then some people still don't have the electricity. It's been more than 5 days now as for today, and people still don't know when it can be restored. And obviously, when you don't have the electricity and it's winter, we were very lucky because in this specific first day of bombing, the temperatures were actually higher, so the snow melted temporarily. For 2 days, we didn't have snow and it was +1. And that means that it was relatively warmer in the apartments, which was a great benefit. Even if your apartment is insulated very well and you had a good temperature before, your temperature didn't drop much. And in my flat, in here, all the heating is electric and everything is electric. So for me, the temperature drop was very significant. For people, it was mostly like everybody was very stressed. People started to buy water, drinking water, because as I told you, these pumping stations were not working, so we didn't have running water. For some reason, people started buying toilet paper, panic buying, which is probably the COVID habit. It's a very strange one. The food was there, so there was no problem with food, and a lot of food places were still operating on generators because many places, many businesses, they bought diesel generators in the previous winters, even though they were using it in summer as well because we had these outages in summer. And as the businesses were working not as usual, some places were closed, but most of them were available. And as for the residences, for the houses, obviously if you live in the residential building, you cannot use diesel generator. And some people have the small batteries. They usually call them generally like EcoFlow because it's the most famous brand, but there are other ones like Blade and so on. So people are buying these higher capacity power banks. That is basically what it is. So they call it the charging station or some electric station. It's not, it's just a big power bank. So if you're relatively wealthy, middle income, you can buy it, and that will give you the power to power your internet. And yeah, internet is important because it's news, it's governmental alerts, it's charging your phone, so you can charge your phone, you can have the access to some outside world. And then you can feed your lamp just to have some light in the evening. And depending on the capacity, you might even boil a little bit of water. Once probably not with a kettle, but with the smaller boilers. But it's usually it's not enough. So It's not for the heating unless it's a really big and expensive thing. So you cannot heat even the electric blanket with the help of these big power banks. In most cases, there are some powerful ones, but usually you cannot afford it. So that's how life in Dnipro right now. It's again, it's very scary because of bombings and because the bombs are now they literally landing anywhere because the small substations they feed in like a smaller neighborhood, and in each neighborhood you will have one. So they're targeting this very small electricity objects, trying to terrorize civil population. But also, if you think about the small electricity objects, which are totally civilian, obviously they're feeding the houses, you're thinking that they're next to your flat, and you're thinking that your house now is a target, and obviously it's not a legitimate target, but that proves that Russians are specifically targeting civilian population, which is yourself. Yeah, so that's scary because now you know that they can bomb your own flat, your own house. And then there's long hours without water, there's long hours without the electricity in winter when you don't know when it will be back. Because if you have some predictability, you can go around it, but when it's not predictable, it's way worse. So this adds to the anxiety, a lot of anxieties here. And also Dnipro became the frontline city because of the evacuation. Now there is a forced evacuation of the villages in the Dnipro region. I told you already about the evacuation of children, which happened in September, and now there is an evacuation of adults, and obviously they all go to Dnipro. Firstly, at least first, before they will go somewhere else, and we have the new intake of refugees, and also because the front line moved closer, we have more military people here. You just see more people in the uniform in the city, and it's a little bit stressful. Not because they're there; it's just like the part of your life lately, but because you know why they are not closer to the front line, why they wouldn't stay station themselves in Pavlograd, for example, which is closer to the front line. And that's why it's just adds to the stress because you don't know if Russians will come closer and start bombing with a short range missile, or if the situation will be stable, or if our army will be able to throw them back, and all this uncertainty is actually just adding up to the stress. And otherwise, there is enough food in the city. Just again, it's very stressful, and it's very stressful what's happening with the boys at the front line because it's very cold. It's a very bad situation. It's very bad time to be at war because it's snowing, and you're clearly visible to the enemy. They can send drones on you, and that's basically it's very worrisome if our boys and girls can hold the positions, if they will be able to survive this winters, also the below zero temperatures, obviously -8, it's super cold, and it's colder in the fields, obviously. So this is very stressful, and Russians are advancing at the front line. And at the same time, you all follow the news. You know that the political situation is very unstable, and we don't know for how long we will have this international support. And right now, we are 100% dependent on the position of the United States. And regretfully, it's not in our favor. Just the American government wants to buy the big businesses, the big enterprises, especially with the rare earth resources, but also the mining resources. And they would like to make Dnipro region the buffer zone between Russians and the civilized world. And obviously, I don't want to be a buffer zone where like all the drones from any side is flying around, and all the foreign armies are stationed. So we do need to liberate the occupied territories, and we do need to throw Russians back to Russian territory. And there is no universal understanding of this. They disregard when they are just playing these games with the maps and play these negotiations. They don't think about people. They don't think about our lives. And obviously, nobody is asking local population if you would like to be a buffer zone in the middle of nowhere instead of being in the center of Ukraine. So that's again that sets up to this stress and this anxiety, and you don't have much power to change anything. That's another layer of it. And that's what's adding up to the situation, and that's what what's forming the mood in Dnipro. So that's it. That's the update. Sorry for being a bit aggressive and green today, but again, the winter is here, the bombings are here, and the international support is basically draining out, which puts us in a very uncertain position. But thank you so much. Thank you for all your support. Thank you for all your donations. Thank you for supporting Ukrainian army and Ukrainian people. Please do talk to your friends, neighbors. Share this video if you can, because I do truly believe that people need to know about what's happening here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon under way better circumstances. Goodbye for now.